And we are live. We're a few minutes late. Hopefully we don't lose too much of our audience. It's been a crazy week so far here at BearHeart Labs. And we've just been busy creating new episodes of the International Geek of Mystery show, and also laughing a lot and eating ramen. So I'm here. I'm BearHeart and Bill Weinman, and right here we have Kurstin. Say hi, Kurstin.
Howdy.
And we have RiKitty in the other box there, in her perfect kitty avatar, and apparently with no sound whatsoever. Try it again. Still nothing.
Meow, 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 meow.
All we see is,
Oh, well, that's okay.
well, there you go. Now we got you.
That's very strange.
Okay.
Anyways, like I said before, meow, 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 meow.
Ah, there you go. There you go. So there's been a lot of things going on in the last few days, but the thing that I want to talk about today is something that many people are probably very tired of talking about, which is COVID. Today is 3 years that since most people went into hibernation, as I call it, or quarantine or lockdown or whatever. I actually started a week or so early because I saw it coming. And as I've said to people many times, anybody with any sort of a math background should have seen it coming. It was there's one number that's very significant in all of this, which is what's called R0, which represents the number of people on average who are infected by one infected person. And if R0 is greater than 1, then you have an infectious disease, something that spreads. And if R0 is less than 1, then you have a disease that can be contained, where the average influenza is the average influenza is slightly above 1, and sometimes a little less than 1. It's like right around there. So it kind of spreads, and then it goes away at the end of the season, and we get something different every year. When we saw the numbers on COVID were well above 1 there, I think the initial reports were around 1.6. It seemed obvious to me that this was going to spread like wildfire. And I'm no statistics expert. I'm no math expert. I'm certainly no epidemiology expert, but that's what I saw. And my wife and I, when we first heard about it, my wife and I were on our way off on our annual Valentine's trip, and we were going to Disneyland this time in Anaheim, California. And I was reading the reports on my phone, and I'm like, yeah, this we're going to enjoy this trip, and then we're going home and we're locking down. And that's what we did. And we didn't catch it for almost 2 years. It took almost 2 years before we finally caught it. And we had been vaccinated, and so what we had when we caught it was very mild. And in my case, even though I was vaccinated, I was sick, and I didn't, I kind of got over it, and I tested negative, but the residual effects lasted for months and months and months. And I took an antiviral, and that my doctor gave me, and that helped a lot. But some of the symptoms still, I still get phantom smells. I smell smoke sometimes when there isn't smoke. And I'm told that that's just, that's just a residual effect, and it may or may not ever go away. So we took it seriously in this house, and I hate wearing a mask. And so I mostly just didn't go out. And my wife has, she takes care of the kids and she drives them around to their doctor appointments and things. And for a while, we homeschooled the kids at first, and some of them responded well and some of them did not. And eventually the schools reopened, and the kids just really, really wanted to go back to school. And the school district was getting, real hard ass about getting the kids back in-person school. And they had masks, and they had, procedures, and they were staggered classes to keep the social distancing. And, and we put them back in school, and eventually they caught it. But by the time, I'm trying to remember now, actually, we refused to put the kids back in school until they could be vaccinated. That's what happened. And so when they finally caught it, they were already vaccinated, and it was very mild for them, and they were well protected by the vaccination. But what I want to talk about today is, so that's the experience of, in my view, somebody taking it responsibly. And, weighing the pluses and minuses. Obviously, we can't live out our forever lives hiding in our houses. And I'm really grateful that we got the vaccinations when we did. It seemed super fast. And in hindsight, it's understandable how it happened the way that it had, because the research for these RMNA vaccinations had been going on for 20 years. And so they were ready by the time this pandemic hit, as opposed to they're not being quite ready by the time the previous, I don't remember what it was called, H1N1. Yeah, there you go. I get it confused with the visitor's visa, but the H1B. Yeah, this is the H1N1 happened, and they weren't quite ready yet. But when the COVID happened, they were able to just isolate the DNA for the COVID virus and plug it into their RMNA vaccines. The vaccines that we got were, they were put through a lot of testing before they were approved by the government, which took, many months, but they were pretty much exactly the same as the vaccines that were developed within a few days of the pandemic beginning. So this shows us that we have the technology now to be able to create, and I know that they're working on, they probably have them already available, and they're putting them into testing, combination vaccines that will protect against, COVID, influenza, and what's that other one that's out right now? I forget what it's called, but it's been affecting a lot of people as well.
RSV.
Yes, RSV, that's the one. So, the future looks bright for the science of all of this, but unfortunately, the science has been horribly politicized, and this is what's bothering me these days. Here we are, three years in. We have a hand up. RiKitty has raised her hand.
When you see a hand, it's because we have comments.
Okay, well, hang on a second. I'm going to change my name because people won't know who I am. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so Gary Check has commented again. Hi, Gary. Nice to see you again. He says measles is very contagious.
Yes, measles is very contagious.
Then we also have a comment, and these are both on YouTube, from You Wish. And You Wish says, hi, bro.
Yeah, You Wish is my brother Steve.
Oh,
my brother Steve, I love him dearly. He is precisely 10 years and 1 day younger than me.
Oh, how?
Well, that explains the hi, bro.
Yes.
Oh, I thought he was just like.
Yeah. Hey, bro.
I didn't-
Good to see you. So your hand is still up, RiKitty. Is there more? Ah, there we go.
he's
All
gone.
right. So the thing that brought this to mind today, because most of this is old news, that the far right agitators have been anti-mask, anti-social distancing, anti quarantine, anti-vaccination, anything that could be done to mitigate this pandemic. These guys have been against it. And that to me is I don't have another word for it. It's evil. It's putting your politics, I don't know, I don't even like to call it politics, because it's not politics in the traditional sense. It's more like treating politics as a team sport. And this is Dodgers versus Yankees or something. And putting that above the health and well-being of your family, your neighbors, your community, just seems to me, I don't have another word for it, but evil. And as part of this, there was the whole anti-Asian hate crimes and the persecution of Asian people in the United States and probably in other parts of the world as well, that happened out of the association of COVID with the with the Hunan province of China, where it came from. Was it the Hunan province? It's no, it's Wuhan. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm still sleep deprived because we've been working so hard on this stuff. And so a lot of these, I don't know what else to call them, fascists, were persecuting and hating on and beating up and even murdering Asian people because they blame them. These are Asian Americans, often born and raised right here in the United States. They blame them for the COVID. And my wife is Asian, so there's that. I've been very worried about her and her friends, and got a huge Asian community here in the Las Vegas Valley. A lot of Filipinos, a lot of Chinese, a lot of Japanese, Vietnamese, everything. And so part of that anti-Asian hate has been this weird lab leak theory. And I'm not saying whether or not COVID came from a lab leak. It's possible that it did. It's possible that it didn't. Some people, I think most of the scientific community, is saying that it came from a jumping across species from an animal in a market. And others have said, a smaller number, but some, with some significant research behind them, have said it was likely a leak from this Wuhan lab that was right there in Wuhan, where they were studying similar diseases. And I think it's obviously important that we study diseases, and it's obviously important that we contain the materials that we're studying diseases with. And so, yeah, we need to do that. And it's, in my view, I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there and I haven't done the research myself. It's equally possible that it came from here or there. What's important is that we find out so that we can take the proper, increased security measures to prevent this from happening in the future. And so in order to really prevent something from happening, you need to kind of know why it happens, where it happens, how it happens, and that sort of thing. This is simple, engineering. But somehow there's been this other politicization of this lab leak theory that takes it into conspiracy territory, where they say, oh, this was a Chinese attack on the United States because they did it on purpose and it was some sort of a weaponization. And the far right has picked up on this and they've used it and they've attached it to their hate of Asian people. So today, reading the news, or yesterday, I'm reading in the news that the U.S. Department of Energy, one of several investigative arms of the U.S. government, had published a report, I think back in November or something, or not published it. They had come up with a report, but kept it within the government and not really published it because they said in the report that they were leaning towards believing that it was that it came from a lab leak, but that they had low confidence. That was the word, low confidence in the result of their investigation, because obviously they didn't have really enough evidence for them to be very, very sure. And perhaps that low confidence is why they didn't, publish the report, or maybe there were other reasons. I don't know. But this report was somehow made public over the last couple of days, and now the right-wing community is all jumping all over that, and taking some victory lap, like this means that they were right all along. And again, so first of all, it does not mean they were right all along. It means that one agency out of several, and more of these investigative agencies believe the wet market theory, and fewer of them, I think there's 2 of them, sided with the lab leak theory, and with low confidence. And nobody really knows. None of these conclusions are entirely conclusive. None of them are saying, yes, this is exactly what happened. We seem to have lost a kitty there. If anybody sees her, please bring her home. Thank you. That she's been found. So they're jumping all over this, like saying they were right all along, which I fear will probably lead to more Asian hate crimes. And I'm sorry to believe that, but I think that seems like the next logical step in their hateful fascist thinking. And please understand that I am not saying that all Republicans are fascists. I know that a lot of people do say that, and I disagree with that. I know people who lean right and are perfectly fine people. I have some good friends who lean right and are perfectly fine people. But this is the far right. This is the alt right. This is the fascist right. This is the people who are looking for any excuse to hate more people and to blame more people for the ills in their lives. And they've always hated Asian people. They've always hated Black people. I'm not talking about the mainstream Republicans, although so much of the Republican Party right now is held captive by the far right because they can't win elections without their votes, because their numbers are dwindling, and a larger percentage of the U.S. population is Democrat now that the Republican Party has moved so far to the right. It doesn't leave the mainstream Republicans anywhere to go anymore. That's a whole other discussion. But this really concerns me. This really frightens me in palpable ways. I know in my family history, being Jews, we've seen a lot of this kind of persecution, and I feel for the people who are experiencing it today. And of course, Jews are experiencing it as well today, but this in particular really bothers me. This otherwise innocuous report that says, hey, we might have figured something out that's important. It's important that we figure it out. And this is very much a viable theory. It could very well be a lab leak, and it's probably still not nefarious. And even if it were nefarious, even if it were like a few really radicalized Chinese communists or something who are, trying to create chaos in the world, that it still has nothing to do with the American Asian community. And you know, again, the likelihood of it being that nefarious is pretty low. Is she
glitching out
talking?
up there. I have no
She is
idea.
glitching out. She's definitely glitching out. There's something wrong with the avatar.
Are you seeing that?
Oh,
We
she's
lost her.
laughing.
We lost her.
You're
Sitting here minding my own business, and I was glitching. So
and what?
And she was just glitching really bad.
I was minding my own business, and it was just glitching out at the worst time. Like you're talking about some serious deep ass shit.
And then the
It's
avatar,
just, like, losing it.
Are you okay?
it was giving Nicki Minaj. It was giving very much Nicki Minaj. Also, I have a question.
Yes.
I didn't read the articles that you're talking about,
Yes.
but when you say lab leak, in my mind, I'm thinking like, you know, fog leaking out, like physically out of a window, out of the doors, or are you talking about like an information leak?
No. So you know, again, I wasn't there and I don't know.
Right.
But the theory is that some sample of a virus that they were experimenting with or testing somehow got loose.
Okay.
It infected one person who infected some, you know,
So like a
1.6 people, and who, you know, and it went from there. And you know, again, that's entirely possible, and it does happen. This wouldn't be the first time, and it's happened in American labs as well. It's happened in labs all over the world, and it doesn't usually result in a in a global pandemic that kills millions of people. But this time, if that's what happened, that's what happened, and we need to know about it if that's what happened, so that we can, you know, properly protect ourselves from that with additional measures, containment measures, or whatever, you know, the people who study that sort of stuff and know about that sort of stuff, you know, whatever they suggest that we do. And if that wasn't it, and if it was something else, it was, you know, another theory is that it crossed species. It jumped from one species to another in what's inaccurately called a wet market. There are markets in many parts of the world, including in the United States, in some communities in the United States, where animals are sold, live animals are sold to families who will then take them home and butcher them and eat them. And you know, we, here in the United States, in some rural communities, people will sell chickens, people will sell live hogs, and you know, it's not unheard of. And people have theories that a bat bit a person, or, you know, I don't know what all the theories are. But again, we seem to have lost our kitty. If anybody sees her,
I'm still here. I don't know why my Zoom is deciding to glitch on me. I was trying to put the cat back. Kitty does not want to go back. Oh, here.
I see. All right. How are we doing for viewership and for comments?
Okay, so we don't have another comment based, well, other than the ones that I've already addressed. We have 2 viewers on Twitch, 2 on LinkedIn. It was higher, 2 on Facebook, and 2 on YouTube. So I guess we're
still hanging.
across the board. And we have another comment from, hold on one second. Oh, it was actually a comment on the last episode, but it was feedback on your guitars. It was a question. It said, are those guitars just for show, or can you actually play? And I was like, ooh, this person must not know what's up.
It doesn't make much noise if it's not plugged in. This one I keep by my desk all the time. I was a guitar player long before I was anything else. Guitar is, I don't remember not knowing how to play the guitar. I don't remember not being obsessed with guitars. And yes, I play. You'll find a YouTube channel called BearHeart Music, and you'll find a few. One of them is me, and I actually own the trademark. You'll recognize my face. on it. And so some of my music is there, you know, mostly, I mean, I played professionally in like the 70s and the early 80s, at late 60s through the early 80s, but haven't really done that so much in a long time. I got very tired of musicians, is what happened. Musicians, they're, you know, once you get up to a certain level and they're really, really professional, that's great. But at the amateur level, they can be extremely dysfunctional. And that was annoying to me. And so, you know, I do fine with my computers, and I enjoy my computers, and I write and do all those things. But these guitars up here, they all have some meaning to me. Some of them I play, some of them are there because they have meaning. The one on the far right was not my first electric guitar. My first electric guitar was stolen, but this was the electric guitar that I played, you know, professionally from I don't know, the mid 70s through the mid 80s. And it's a very special guitar. There was only a few hundred of them made. It's a Gibson L6S, which it's just a very, very, and it's one of the first 80 made, because only the first 80 made had the block fingerboard markers. So that's kind of my most special guitar. Then let's see, there's a fretless bass. This is a Les Paul Jr. that I just love. I found it on eBay recently, and I really love it. This is a bass that I built. So a lot of these guitars are guitars that I built. I also build guitars, which is, to me, it's just it's a Zen hobby thing that I just do for enjoyment. My brother Steve, who is commenting on YouTube, he has one of my guitars that I gave him for his birthday once. So there's that one. This one here is a Roland synthesizer guitar, which was mentioned in one of the episodes that we recorded today. This is a monster bass. This is a bass that I built out of spare parts of other basses. This is a PRS. I don't know if you can still hear me. I'm farther away from the microphone. This is a Paul Reed Smith Custom 24 10 top, really beautiful guitar. And this is a Gibson Firebird, which I really, yeah, I can do it this way. This is a Gibson Firebird. This is the PRS, and the Gibson Firebird I love. It's got the feel of a Gibson neck, and it's got that quack of a Stratocaster. It's a beautiful blues guitar, and I'm learning to play slide. I never played slide much, and so that's going to be my slide guitar if I ever practice enough to get good at playing slide. You'll notice if we had a wider shot, I've also got a keyboard over here. And you know, I use that for composing and arranging and doodling. Doodling is an important part of my daily life, and so I doodle on the keyboard. I also have another synthesizer keyboard up here, which, you know, requires electronics to work, and I use that for when I'm recording. If I need a drum track, and you know, like a temporary track, usually on most of my drum tracks on my YouTube channel, you'll find that I hired a drummer, because drummer is a very special and valuable and important and wonderful thing. And while I can play the drums, I have a set over here, I am not very good. And any kind of music that hadn't have really great drums is just never going to be any good. There, that's probably a lot more than what you asked for, but there's my answer. Yes, I play.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So
yeah, we are coming up on our 30-minute mark.
Okay. That's my rant on the politicization of COVID. You know, the thing about the vaccines is not just the far right. There's also there was a movement already gaining traction before COVID hit, where, I don't know, yoga moms, for lack of a better term, were starting to refuse to vaccinate their kids against measles, mumps, rubella, and those kinds of things. And these diseases, which had been virtually eradicated in the United States and in the developed world, were starting to come back because all of a sudden these moms were refusing to vaccinate their children. And it's the same thing when people get it in their head that they that they're smarter, that their ignorance is as valuable as other people's expertise, as valid as other people's expertise, that their common sense, which I'm convinced doesn't actually exist, common sense, is somehow a better guide for protecting their family and their community and all of mankind than the scientists who have spent decades researching and learning how this shit actually works. When that happens, then you get wackos and you get diseases and so the science denying is not just the far right. There's also an element of otherwise left-wing people who I otherwise would enjoy hanging out with, who are just, no, I'm not going to get vaccinated. I'm not going to go to a real doctor. I'm going to go to a holistic doctor, and I'm going to do homeopathic medicines, and as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, it falls under whatever floats your boat to me, which is fine. But when it starts affecting the people around you, when it starts affecting your children, and it starts affecting the people around you, then it starts to really bother me. So yeah, the anti-vax part of it is not just the far right, but the far right is new to this movement. They had not been anti-vax until their Tangerine Voldemort told them to be, and that's my term for the former guy. And so that happened, and during COVID, so I have a pretty wide circle because of my affiliation with the weird people in Arizona that I spent a couple of decades with studying spirituality. Because of my association with those people, I have a pretty wide circle of very close acquaintances and friends and such. And unfortunately, during COVID, a lot of those people caught the anti-vax bug, and a lot of them caught the anti-mask and anti-social distancing, and some of them went, full QAnon right-wing wacko. And unfortunately, quite a few of those people are no longer with us. They caught it and they died miserable, painful deaths. As recently as 2 months ago, one of them. And she was young. She was in her late 30s. She was healthy. She did yoga all the time, and she's gone. Because she believed these conspiracy theories rather than the science. And people say, oh, well, the science doesn't know what it says. It changes from day to day. No, science doesn't change from day to day. We learn new things. And this was a brand new virus that nobody had ever seen before. And it usually takes us decades to fully understand a new virus. When they say that it's a novel coronavirus, novel is just a Latin word for new. So yeah, I mean, at first they thought, okay, well, masks are for the hospitals. Well, then they quickly realized when they learned that it was airborne. Yeah, it is airborne. We've been looking for this, and we didn't think it was, but yeah, it's definitely airborne. And so y'all got to wear masks. And these right-wing people who had politicized the whole thing, they're saying, you see, we were right. The scientists don't know what they're talking about. And that's not true. They do know what they're talking about. Science, the word science, and I'm going to take a sip of water here. Excuse me. The word science refers to the scientific method. When we say science says, what we mean is that this thought has gone through the scientific method. And I don't have it in front of me here, but let me see if I can do it from memory. You have a hypothesis, you form experiments, you perform the experiments, you observe the results of your experiments, and you modify your hypothesis based on the results of your observations. And then you go through the cycle again, and you go through the cycle again, and it's a circle. The scientific method is always shown as a circle. And the idea of the entire purpose of the scientific method, and you could say that this is the entire purpose of science, is to counter the effects of bias. We all have bias. And we're tempted when we have bias, when we come into something with an idea, a thought of how this is supposed to be, scientists call this a hypothesis. And we want our hypothesis to be correct, right? Because that's just a natural human tendency. We naturally want to be right and we don't want to be wrong. And so if I think of an idea, then I want to prove that idea. And so if I put it through the scientific process, and the scientific method, and I find that my idea, well, part of it might be true, but this other part of it, this is different. There's a great expression that the greatest words you'll ever hear in science are not "Eureka, I found it." The greatest words you'll ever hear in science are "That's funny." Because it's the unexpected result of this scientific method. That's where we discover new things. That's where we find out that, oh, what I thought this was, it's an entirely different thing. And you get to the point where you can prove it and you get repeatable results. When it becomes actual provable science is when you can repeat your results and you understand the mechanisms by which this thing works well enough so that you can come up with new experiments in different ways that continue to prove the thing, that give you reliably the results that you're expecting every time. And so, that's what science is. And because of that, when we're starting from scratch with a new type of a virus, for example, we're going to have some hypotheses that are going to be wrong. And we're going to find out quickly if we're doing our job and trying to protect humans from horrible, painful death, then we're going to find out quickly that, hey, this hypothesis over here, that wasn't exactly correct. Maybe part of it was, but hey, this thing is airborne. We got to wear masks. We got to stand 2 meters apart from each other when we go to the grocery store or whatever. And so, and it's probably best we just stay home if we can afford to, and if we can, and, order takeout or whatever until we have a workable vaccine. And so, there were people who wanted to politicize this and they wanted to make it into some right-wing counting coup. Ooh, you see, Dr. Fauci was wrong, or like one of the most respected scientists in the last 4 decades. You see, he said something and he lied. They like to, anytime you say something that turns out not to be correct, even an honest mistake, they like to call it a lie because they've redefined that word lie to mean anything that they don't like. And so, this got a lot worse under the administration preceding this one. And the kitty is making faces again. Every once in a while I look up there and I see the kitty making faces and it just makes me laugh. That's great.
Yeah,
because
no, I was trying to say that we just
long rants.
No, I was just trying to say that we are now coming up on 45 minutes, so it might be a good time to get back to the studio and start filming another episode.
Yeah, okay. Listen, guys, guys and gals, audience, all you cool cats and kittens. Thank you so much. I hope you got something out of my rant. It felt like I just needed to say a lot of that stuff because it came up and it's been bothering me.
Feel better.
No, when I rant, it is not to make me feel better. When I rant, it's to make you feel better.
Obviously.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Again, we're going to be back on Friday, again, right around 1800, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. And because of our schedule with the recording, we may be a few minutes late. We'll do our best.
And we are hoping to play a live round of poker.
We're hoping to do something special. And yes, the cat is out of the bag, as we would say. And don't get me started, because I know where that expression came from, and it doesn't mean what you think it means.
Okay, I would like to know what it means now.
Oh, really? Okay, so on the old sailing ships, around the time when they were first circumnavigating the world and finding, 16th, 17th century, these sailing ships used slave labor. And so the people on the ships were usually, debtors or, prisoners or something. And so they were kept in line with a cat o' nine tails, which is a type of a whip. And the whip was normally kept in a bag. You see where this is going. And so when the cat was out of the bag, you knew that something bad was about to happen. So that's
I thought it was like a spoiler.
No,
not
that's
like a beating other humans type of vibe. I will never use that expression again. Thank you for educating me, because I never would have known that, and I would have lived in my ignorance.
so
It would not have been bliss.
the English language, like all languages, evolve. And many of our words and expressions have histories that are not pleasant. And because humans are inherently very tribal. We can be very cruel. I mean, because we have evolved and because we have created societies and learned to live together, we don't express this as much. But the history of humanity is full of cruelty and so anyway, that's where the expression comes from, is the cat o' nine tails.
And on that note,
all right, so now you've learned something else. Here we are. As we've been recording these episodes, and I'm pointing, we have the studio set up in the other room over there, and I decided unilaterally, because I'm the boss, I'm the big cheese, that we have used up we've been signing off with the American Sign Language for all done, and I've changed it now. We're now going to use the ASL for love you, and this is I is this, and L is that, and Y is that. So we have
This Y.
This is why. Yeah. So anyway, this is I love you in ASL, and so we're going to be signing off that way for a while. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kurstin and Ricky, and we'll see you all next time.